Is peak oil a fact or fiction? Well, we can say that the production of oil will increase exponentially until it reaches its peak point, and then it will decline exponentially. Because at that point, all major reserves of oil will have been used, and thus they will decrease over time. However, the problem is that was this created by oil companies to sell oil at higher prices, or is peak oil really real, and therefore we will pay for higher oil, which will then allow those same oil companies to just switch production to different kinds of fuel, such as oil produced from coal. Now, peak oil refers mostly to crude, basically, but other sources of oil are available. For instance, there is a kind of algae which can produce oil and produce petrol-like substances as well, without the need for refining. If you read New Scientist magazine, you will find many such allusions to this. But what about clean energy? What about fusion power? Or what about wind power? What about wave power? What about fuel cells which use hydrogen? All these fuels sources are available, and I would say they're a much better bet over the course of history than oil, because of course we've had windmills for thousands of years, but this will be the first time that we would have used them on a mass scale for producing energy. Also in the Sahara, there is a project by the EU to create solar farms to capture the solar rays of the sun and then use that to heat up oil in turbines to produce steam power, and thus then get the turbine moving and thus produce electricity. But does this mean, if we take that peak oil is not just a theory but it is fact, let us carry on from the perspective that it might be a fact. A YouTube user called Pieman has said that this could lead to a second Cold War with China. But why have I called it a third Cold War? Because we must not forget those evil bastards, the Binladens, who I've referred to in so many vids. They are reliant on oil, and many other of the feudalistic crime families that are around in the world are dependent on oil. Therefore, oil is a dirty business, as I said in my video, Oil and Drugs, Dirty Business. We must get off oil. Oil is linked to the dollar, and thus when the Federal Reserve prints more dollars, there is more oil money for the Bin Ladens to wash clean through their Islamic banking system, and thus that is an economic connection. Thus, that is a political connection, because economics and politics are linked. And so therefore we must create a system where there is no economic or political connections around the Bin Ladens, and thus their military strength will decrease. They've already lost 52,000 people, but they have hundreds of thousands of people, and they have trillions of dollars from construction and oil are their two major businesses. Would they just switch to producing wind farms? Would the terrorists in effect go green? Well, that would have to be seen to be believed. But the Sicilian mafia seems to have gone green, and so by producing wind farms and solar panels, but that's not an argument against going clean energy. Would it mean a major race for oil territories between China and Europe and America? Well, that's certainly a case, but in order to defeat the Bin Ladens, we must invade Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia is the largest oil reserves. So China at the moment does not have the military technology to protect Saudi Arabia. So therefore Saudi Arabia seeks others to protect it. It seeks the Bin Ladens on one hand, because Saudi Arabia is controlled by the Saudi royal family, who are a crime family, and the Bin Laden crime family. But they also need America's protection from their enemy, Iran. Now, Iran as a choice. Will it go towards the European Union and America, or will it go towards China? That's a major question for Iran. But the thing is that Iran has already signed up to the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement, which is an alliance between China and Russia, are the two major parts of that alliance. But it also involves Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Iran, and possibly even India. And India is the card that the United States has been banking on, but it's not a very reliable card. Now, will the race be for oil in Central Asia and oil in Africa? Because those are the two areas that China is exporting tens and tens of millions of people. Over 60 million Chinese people will have gone to Africa by 2020. That's a staggering number of people, and it is only going to keep increasing. So you will have a Pax China versus Pax Europa, because Europe will obviously be expanding in through Turkey into Azerbaijan, and hopefully it will have Iran as a member. There will also be a Middle Eastern Union by 2030 probably, as well as a North African Union, which will be part of a Mediterranean Union which is allied to the European Union. Possibly we may see a greater United States in the form of a North American Union, which will be a Mexico, China and Canada. And you must not forget that Canada has massive amounts of shale oil reserves, which is a dirty form of oil, but it can be harvested. It will mean the destruction of Canada's arboreal forest, though, to get it, which would be a major crime against future generations. But what is the point here? The point is that whether there is peak oil or there is not peak oil, we must get off of oil. Oil is the most dirty business. It is a more dirty business than drugs because it funds terrorism. Drugs is only a sideline for the less top dog criminals. The top criminals of the world are all dependent on oil, and we must get off of oil. That is my final comment. Thank you.